name is Jared Bernstein, and I am here to answer all of your questions about politics, regardless of if they are simple or complicated, regardless of if you are a Republican or a Democrat. Everybody is welcome here. All good faith questions are welcome here. So go ahead and throw your questions in the chat if you got them, and we will get to answering them. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So this is the show where you can ask all of your questions and no one's going to make fun of you for not knowing things or being too far to the left or too far to the right. I don't believe in debates. I don't think that they are productive. So if you're looking for people on the left and people on the right shouting at each other and screaming at each other, this is not the show for you. This is just the show for good faith engagement, quality content, fact checking, accurate information, no propaganda, no misinformation, no unverified claims. We are just here to answer all of your questions about politics without yelling or screaming or calling each other idiots or anything like that. What's up, Muzzking? Great to see you again. Snow says, is universal healthcare overall positive? Yes, without question, definitively. We have so much data to support that. It is just billionaire propaganda suggesting otherwise. Thank you for your question, Snow. Thank you for being here. Everybody else, welcome to the live stream. My name is Jared. I'm here to answer all your questions about politics. So if you got any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I'm not going to make fun of you for not knowing things or being uninformed. I also will not make fun of you or call you names if you are a Republican or a Democrat or something in the middle or something on the outskirts. Everybody is welcome here, regardless of your political affiliation, so long as you are engaging in good faith. You are allowed to stay. If you are somebody who does not agree with me politically, that is fine. Just don't troll the comments and don't, be a jerk. And everybody is allowed to stick around and ask whatever questions that you like. But trolls will be booted. I know that it is really difficult trying to pay attention to politics these days with all the misinformation and propaganda that is running around rampant. It can be difficult to figure out what's actually going on. This is the show where you can ask what's going on, and we will let you know. What's up, Willie? Good to see you again. I hope that my answer about the Russia collusion yesterday was what you were looking for and filled in whatever gaps you needed. Everybody else, welcome to the live stream. My name is Jared. I'm here to answer all your questions about politics. There's no such thing as a dumb question. Everybody is welcome, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. I don't believe in doing debates or screaming at each other or yelling at each other. I am just here to engage in good faith on the substance. There'll be no bullying, no harassing, no misinformation, no unverified claims. It is just answers to your questions and good faith engagement. Exo says, what is the long-term plan to manage immigration sustainably? I mean, we can talk about what a good plan would be. I think it's important to recognize that the Trump administration is not doing a good job with this. They are behaving atrociously and also not fixing the problem at the exact same time. Long-term plan. We need to work with the countries where all the immigrants are coming from to try to stabilize their countries and help them so that their people don't feel like they have to leave. We need to have border security so that people that we don't know who they are aren't coming into the country. We need to have a pathway to citizenship that is not prohibitively expensive and does not take decades. We need to hire more immigration and asylum attorneys so that we don't have a backlog of cases, increasing the time with which people can come over here. And I think we need to incentivize the immigrants who are coming over here and being a benefit to our society to become citizens, All right, Awesome Sauce says, how's it going, Jared? Any plans for Valentine's Day? My wife and I, we have two separate anniversaries. We do the anniversary of our wedding and we do the anniversary of our first date. Our first date anniversary was last week, and so since we have started dating, been like, we do the romantic thing on our anniversary. We don't need to do anything on Valentine's Day because that's when everybody is doing things. Okay, Jeffrey Rickson says, visa process too slow and too expensive. No excuse for that. Completely agree. Parker Perry says, what is your stance on ICE? They are a rogue agency. They've been a rogue agency for a long time, but now that Stephen Miller is in charge, they are fucking off the rails, and they are just straight up fucking murdering people with zero impunity. They said they were going to go after the worst of the worst, but they also have a quota, which means that they're rounding up. Most of the people that they are rounding up have done absolutely nothing wrong. So, yeah. And the fact that they have fired immigration attorneys, fired asylum attorneys, fired judges. It means that all of these people who are being held in detention illegally have no recourse. And judges are saying, let that person out. And then they're not letting them out. And then the judge is like, why didn't you let them out? And the lawyer's like, I don't know, Your Honor. And I'm trying to get this done, but there are just not enough people working in this administration because they're stupid. All right. Ellipses says, thoughts on Saddam Hussein? I'm against him. Parker Perry says, but do you think you should come in the country legally? Yeah, why not? JC says, can it be added up with the legal cost of legal for prosecuting such defending Trump's wrongdoing? I'm sure a person could. I definitely don't know how to do that. Black at You says, are the Obamas simians? No. What a weird question. All right, Alfrey says, what UK political party? Labour, but I'm not really an expert. I just think that left-wing parties are generally better than right-wing parties. Bez says, who controls the government? Right now, the Republican Party. Martin McClear says, what's your stance with civilians in Minnesota doing roadblocks to stop ICE? I believe that is legal protest. So, yeah, fucking go crazy, guys. Jeffrey Rickson says, fact, visas overstays are 79% Russia and Chinese. I don't know if that's true, but seems accurate, I suppose. Black at You says, great answer. I mean, well, it was a weird question, Black at You. I don't know what you were expecting me to say. Presley Matters says, same ICE leader got a medal under Obama, so it's not now that he's in charge. I mean, it is now that Stephen Miller is in charge, and also it's not the same ICE leader. If the directive for the feds is do whatever the fuck you want, murder people, that's different than what happened under ICE, Presley. Are you intentionally spreading misinformation, or are you just uninformed? Let me know, Presley. Sincere question. What's up, Lauren? Great to see you again. John Abbott says, the question, but don't you think people should have to come here legally, is irrelevant to ICE and CBP since they're going after people who did come legally? Excellent point, John Abbott. Thank you for putting that out. Almost all of the people that ICE is rounding up have done nothing wrong. So you tell me what the issue is, guys. If ICE is doing shit now that they weren't doing under Obama, you tell me what the issue is. All right. Excellent first questions, everybody. JC says, and can it be retrieved to the U.S.? I don't know what that means. Yeah, JC, I'm not really sure. I have a little. And can it be retrieved to the U.S.? I think it's probably unlikely that we'll be able to get that money back. But I could be wrong. I got no idea. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. My name is Jared. I'm here to answer all your questions about politics. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a right-wing or left-wing, Democrat, Republican, some in the middle, some on the outskirts. So long as you are engaging in good faith and not being a troll, you are welcome here. I am here to engage with people of all political flavors, be you left-wing or right-wing. There's no such thing as a dumb question. No one's going to make fun of you or roast you or harass you or bully you. It is just going to be good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it, so this is where you can ask all your questions and no one's going to make fun of you. Verkdus says, are you actually talking politics or morals? I mean, there's some crossover in that Venn diagram, but mostly we're talking about politics. If you're asking me about ICE shit, I am going to add that they are acting barbarically and immorally, but, it's kind of involved, don't you think? Hey, user with no screen name and just an eyeball. What do I call you going forward? Asks, do you think we should be funding Israel and I don't know what Big Hayu is, but no, we should not be funding Israel because we already have a law that says we are not allowed to send money and weapons to countries that are guilty of war crimes, and we know that the Israeli government is guilty of war crimes. Jeffrey Rickson says, funny how people complaining about the halftime show language can't speak proper English themselves. That is funny. Alfrey says, I already did that one, Alfrey. Martin McClear says, what about the actual criminals ICE arrest? Doesn't that count for something? I mean, let me make this clear, Martin. If I am rounding up 100 people and 92 of them have done nothing wrong, that doesn't mean that they did a good job because they got 8 people who did do something wrong, Martin McClear. Have you ever heard the expression, it is better for 100 criminals to go free than for one innocent person to be in jail? That's kind of how I feel, it is a travesty. It is unjust. It is morally bankrupt to detain torture, intimidate, beat up, murder people who have done absolutely nothing wrong. If you are doing that to hundreds and hundreds or thousands and thousands of people so that you can get a couple of bad guys, then you need to change your policies because that is unconscionable. Isaiah, thank you for that. Canalingua says, did anything happen to your family when they wrote the books? I don't know what that means. That kind of feels a little anti-Semitic coded. I don't know what that means. B. Cooper says, you sound just like me. All right, sweet. You must sound dope as hell. Canalingua says, it must be the universe folding in. I don't know what your vibe is, my guy. Hunter says, is Berserk 97 the best? I don't know what that is. Willie says, do you think SCOTUS should have more justices? Yes, 100%. In lieu of being able to impeach the Supreme Court justices who have been acting completely lawlessly and just as a wing of the Republican Party, we should add justices so that we can dilute their voice to basically nothing. Muzz King, L. B. Cooper, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. All right, let's see here. 3DXYZ says, politics aside, that show was boring. What show? You talking about the Super Bowl? Then you are completely wrong about that. Because that halftime show was dope as hell. I've watched it multiple times because I enjoyed it that much. Okay, Chuck says, all money going to foreign countries is unlawful. I don't know if it is unlawful, Chuck. In fact, I'm pretty confident that it's not. But I will also say that I am willing to argue that some foreign aid is beneficial to America and to Americans. And so I'm happy to engage with you on that topic if you like. Asher says, thoughts on Thomas Massie? We have to grade on a curve for Republican politicians because if you are caping for trickle-down economics, you're a piece of shit. Like, you are doing the work of the billionaire class and you can go to hell. But if you're a Republican who is instrumental in getting all the Epstein shit out, you're at least a little bit good, If you are standing up to Trump, if you voted to impeach, you're at least a little bit good. Cougar says, we should have a law that we shouldn't send money or weapons to any country. But what about where it would be really good for us to do that, Cougar? What do you think about that? Odin's son says, what is a conservative principle that you agree with? Honestly, I don't know, because all that I have seen conservatives politicians do is cut taxes for the wealthy, cut regulations, consolidate power, allow fascism to run rampant, not investigate murders that happen by the feds. I don't understand. What policy could I possibly appreciate of theirs? Big D1 says, how much released under Biden Dio shit? I don't know what that means. Jeffrey Rickson says, how about doubling the size of Congress? It might cut down on celebrity reps and dilute the two parties. I'm not mad at adding seats to the House, but I also think we should rebalance the Senate because right now, I think 60% of the Senate was elected by 10% of the country, which doesn't seem to be fair to me. JV1 doesn't seem to be representative to me. JV1 says, can Bounty be prosecuted for all the lies she is telling today? Yes, she can, but in order to do that, we would need to replace the people in government who are Republicans because they are not going to prosecute her because she is on their team. AJ says, what is your opinion on the two-party system? I don't love it. I would love it if we had ranked choice voting. We're only going to get ranked choice voting if we vote for Democrats because Republicans don't like ranked choice voting. Odinson says, what would you like to see the Democratic Party do better? It's a really good question. Personally, because I'm a progressive, I think we should be leaning harder into our younger progressive candidates like AOC and Maxwell Frost. And I believe that some of the older heads in the Democratic Party are still playing by the old rules of civility politics and centrism for centrism's sake, shit like that. I'm sure that there are some pollsters who will tell you that what Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries is doing is making it so that we can win House seats in red states. And I'm like, yeah, maybe. I kind of feel like economic populism is a winning strategy no matter what place you are in this country. But I am at least humble enough to admit that I might be wrong about that. That is my general take, though. I believe that we will win more if we lean into the younger, more progressive candidates. That's my theory. That's how I feel. Let's see. Martin McCleary says, you would disband ICE. Yes, 100%. Big D1 says, how much Epstein info was released under the Biden administration? I mean, they tried, but Republicans filibustered at Big D1. Did you know about that? Are you here to spread misinformation? Are you uninformed? Let me know in the comments. All right. Isaiah, that's your name, right? Do you think the USA should have an official language and or religion? 100% no on the religion. We're supposed to have a separation of church and state. in this country. It is supposed to be freedom of religion, which means that it is a violation of our Constitution to try to favor or establish a national religion. Official language, I don't really see an issue with having an official language. I kind of lean on the side of I don't see what the point of it is, so why have one? I could be persuaded either way. But yeah, I lean towards keeping it as not having an official language because who the fuck cares, you know? Enzo says, so apparently Epstein is alive and has a Fortnite account. I don't believe that is accurate. Your culture is the problem. Says, I've removed myself from all politics. I only care about my immediate life only. You know, your culture is the problem. I think my theory is that if you don't pay attention to politics, you will eventually feel worse because of politics. You know, politics is paying attention to you. So I think that you should pay attention to politics. Just Jeff says, we do have an official language, but we don't, though. There is no official language of the United States. Scott123 says, will Trump get his name on the ends of the tunnel? I don't know which tunnel you're referring to. Yeah, I don't really know. Let's see here. Yesterday we had a protest about ICE out. A few hundred kids were there. I'm really glad that you did that, Isaiah. I hope that you are anti-ICE as well. Gad V2, hello. I'm glad you're here as well. John Abbott says there's already a precedent to justify expanding SCOTUS to 13, adding 4 liberal justices to balance it out. Completely agree with that. Yeah, I've got a Restream bot that is doubling a bunch of comments, and that is making it difficult to see here. Josh Sarah, great to see you again, says, how should we add justices to the Supreme Court? I vote for adding 1 every time a politician breaks a law. We can use any stadium to house the Supreme Court within a week. That's very funny. Ready. Gad V2 says, thoughts about repealing OLC's opinions for prosecution of executive office, precedent to do so via Bush administration torture documents. So generally speaking, I think that it is a bad thing that we have the OLD memo saying that we can't prosecute sitting presidents. That plus the Supreme Court decision giving presidents full immunity so long as what they're doing are official acts as decided by the right-wing Supreme Court, that I think needs to be overdone as well, but I think that's probably the priority, and then we can get to the OLD memo later. Sowell says, the fact the left's pushing confusion in gender and language is why it's a cancer. So Sowell, I disagree with that. I don't believe that that is a productive thing that you just said. If you would like to engage on the substance of gender identity and shit like that, I'm happy to, but you're going to have to ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Christina says, Trump maniacally wants his name on Penn Station and Dulles Airport. Yeah, he's a psychopath narcissist who believes that building a ballroom and redoing the Kennedy Center and building himself an arch is more important than actually taking care of American citizens who are struggling to pay the rent and find housing and get health care and shit like that. All right. I mean, it would be easy to rename Penn Station after him. We could keep the P&E. See if you guys can figure out that. Sowell says, yeah, because the axiom that English is the language of America is now in question. Sowell, America does not have an official language. It's not like it was ever established. You know, you're kind of wrong, Sowell. So let's see here. Martin McClure says, who would your future Democratic president be? I like Chris Murphy. Just Seth says, it was signed in executive order earlier last year. What was signed? Well, I do not believe that Trump has the power to do that by executive order. March 1st, 2025, use the official language. Yeah, but I do not believe that that is a binding executive order. I don't believe that Trump gets to unilaterally decide that. Rich Wider says, did anybody post the Bad Bunny lyrics in English yet? A lot of moral compass warriors need them. I don't really understand what the issue that you have with the Bad Bunny lyrics is, Rich, or if you like them. I don't know what you mean there. Triska says, just add just add the D and the O to P and the E, and then you can name it there. All right, Isaiah, great to see you again. Thank you for being here. Have a good day. Study hard, etc. Triska B. Cooper, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Okay. Josh Sarah says, I think Sweden has an official language and official minority language, one of them being Yiddish. How do you feel about doing something like that in the USA? I guess I wonder what the utility of having an official language is, or what we are losing by not having an official language. It just seems kind of like culture war fluff to me, to be like, you're in America, speak American. It just, I don't know. Like somebody make the case to me that America should have an official language. Like, what is the benefit of that? If the benefit is because we're Americans and we speak English, that's not really a benefit, you know? Oh, okay. Let's see here. Gad V2 says thoughts on Bondi hearing this morning. So I did not. I only saw some clips. I don't really watch those hearings because I really hate it when people just yell and scream at each other. Even when I like it, when people like that I like make good points and have like good video clips and stuff, I just can't stand it. I just can't stand watching it. But yeah, you know, she's a fucking lackey. She's substanceless. Yeah, you know, like her prerogative is just to go on there and start fights with Democrats, and then she gets to keep her job, which is so fucking stupid. Like, don't you guys want these people actually doing their fucking jobs instead of just yelling at Democrats? Saul Man says Brexit was a big mistake. Make a video about it. People should know the truth. I mean, I think that people in the UK know that it was a mistake at this point. I believe that polling says that the people who would vote for it would universally vote to re-enter the EU at this point. But I don't know what current polling is like. I don't know what those numbers are. BTS 19034 says, why they talk about helping middle class the last 40 years and it's getting smaller and harder for them. Well, people keep on voting for the Republican Party, and Republican Party policies are destroying the middle class. And so if you want to vote, if you want to blame somebody for it, you should look at the Republican Party, who are currently in charge of the entire government. Dave Smith says, but aren't we a melting pot of all types of people from everywhere, so official language? I mean, that's how I feel, you know. I am waiting for somebody to make the case for me that having an official language is any benefit whatsoever and is not just stupid culture war bullshit for the right. Adams Garden says, why the U.S. not recognizing Palestine? Thank you for your answer. So there's a bunch of reasons why. The most prescient, the most present reason is that currently the Republican Party is in charge of the government. And the Republican Party is anti-Palestine. They are pro-Israel. They do not give a shit about brown people. They are hostile to people of other religions. I'm not talking about the voters. I'm talking about the politicians that are currently in charge. And so Palestine is not going to get recognized so long as the Republican Party is in charge of America. Logan says, why is Noor being arrested for the Ep files? I don't know who that is. Why is no one being arrested for that Epstein files? Exact same answer, because the Republican Party is currently in charge. And they are only incentivized to take legal action against people that they believe it is politically beneficial for them to take action against. So they are not going to go after any of Trump's friends. They're not going to go after Trump or anybody in the Trump administration. They're only going to go after Trump's enemies list. And if that means doctoring information, they will do it. If that means making up stupid charges that have no basis in reality, they will do it. And they have done it already. All right. Grace says MAGA is Epstein and the Republicans. I mean, there are potentially some not MAGA and Republicans in there. I don't know. Logan says, would it be the same if the Democrats were in charge? No, it would not. Logan, wait, what was your question, though? I do believe that if we had responsible people in charge of the Department of Justice and the FBI under a Democratic leadership, then we could potentially start seeing legal action. Now, according to the Democrats who have seen the unredacted files, there are at least 6 people who are implicated and could go to jail. Now, a lot of those people are billionaires who live on private jets in different countries, so some of them we might not be able to get to. You know, I think like somebody who, I forget exactly who was on that list, but there was a bunch of names that sounded like they were in other countries. Okay, Jaden says communism and capitalism were created and dominated by the same people. I do not believe that is accurate, Jaden. Don't spam the comments. Joey says, am I in the wrong depending on if I feel my teachers are Republican or Democrat to act like it? So I'm guessing so that you get a better grade, Joey? Is that what you're saying? Vicky Howard says the Democrats were in charge and absolutely nothing changed. That is inaccurate, Vicky. There are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act, which is only possible because Democrats were in charge. And there are women who are dead today because of abortion bans, which were only possible because Republicans were in charge. So you can stop it with that both sides nonsense on my live stream. Warzone Hunter says both sides are complicit in Epstein. Yes, but only one side is trying to hide the information from the American people. Only one side is engaged in a massive cover-up to protect Trump and his friends who are complicit, who are in the files. Alrighty, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Joey says, do you think the U.S. is slipping into fascism? I do, but I don't think that it's a foregone conclusion. I believe that we can fight our way back. Bradford Huntsman says, how do we get our damn government to impeach Trump? We have to replace all the elected Republicans with elected Democrats, because Republicans are not going to impeach a president of their own party. That, I believe, is disqualifying. I believe that if your political party is not going to hold accountable presidents of your party, even if they do wildly impeachable things like having a cryptocurrency and accepting bribes from the Emirates and then selling them our best computer chips so that they can dominate us in the AI race, obviously that political party has got to go. Am I wrong? Bradford Huntsman says, I'm in fucking Idaho. I vote Democrat every time, but not much changes. Do you do much community organizing? You know, I'm sure that there are a lot of Democrats in your state or in your area who you could help get to the polls potentially, or maybe you could organize to help convince more people to vote for Democrats. Joey says, I personally don't think that it's slipping into fascism because people can still speak out. But you are aware that some people have been punished for speaking out, right, Joey? You know, slipping into fascism is not the same as being in fascism. So just because I'm allowed to have this streaming show doesn't mean we are not slipping into fascism. It just means that fascism hasn't gotten me yet. Right, Joey? Let me know how you feel about that. Alrighty, let's see here. Callie Griffin says they want English to be the official language because they're, you know, look, Callie, I agree with that, but again, I'm looking for a use case. John Abbott says, within a week of the Brexit vote, there were polls showing that the only reason it won is because people didn't take it seriously. A bunch of polls showed tons of people who voted for it didn't think it would win. And if they had known it would win, they would have voted against it. I mean, the exact same thing happened with us and Trump. You know, like a bunch of people regretted their vote after 2024. Okay. Bradford Huntsman says, or murdered for speaking out, a.k.a. Alex Preddy, 100%. Salvador Cortez says, what do you think about the phrase, you will own nothing and be happy? I guess I'm against it. You know, it seems like the billionaire class agenda of making us rent everything. You know, we have to pay for subscriptions to watch movies and televisions. We have to pay rent instead of owning a house. We have to rent out healthcare, I suppose. I don't know how else to go about it. Okay. Dare O'Brien says the U.S. is like the most diverse country in the world. How can it go into fascism? I do not believe that a country being diverse is a stopgap for it going into fascism. The reason why we are in danger of fascism right now is because the Trump administration is engaged in all of the things that fascists do: attacking institutions of higher learning, attacking the press, consolidating power, purging the party of anybody but loyalists, rampant corruption and self-dealing. You know, like aggrandizing the military action, starting fights with our neighbors, isolationism. You know, it's all part of the fascism playbook. You know, Warzone Hunter says nothing changes from either side. Inaccurate. There are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act. There are women who are dead today because of abortion bans. Those people would tell you that who is in charge makes a difference. You know, Renee Good's children and her wife who is now a widow, her children who now don't have a mother, will tell you that it makes a difference who is in charge. You know, I get a little heated when people tell me that. When people tell me that nothing changes when people are in charge. When there are people who are fucking rotting in federal detention centers right now, and ICE is building concentration camps all over this country, it's like, you tell the children whose parents are locked up right now for no fucking reason whatsoever that who is in charge makes no difference. All right, I need to take a breath. Joey says, can both sides stop fighting because people are dying because of it? Kirk, Good, etc. You know, Joey, I'm with you on this. I am with you that I do not think that it is valuable for us, the voters, to be fighting amongst ourselves. But I worry that people think that stopping the fighting means not pointing out when the Republican Party does shit that is really, really bad, and not advocating for better politicians. Like, is me coming on here and accurately pointing out that Renee Good would still be alive if we had Democrats in the presidency instead of Donald Trump. Like, does that count as fighting? You know? I also think that there's a big difference between Charlie Kirk and Renee Good. Like, Charlie Kirk was assassinated by a crazy person. Renee Good was murdered by our government, by federal officers who are being given impunity to do so by people like Stephen Miller and Donald Trump. The highest levels of government are giving cover for feds who are doing murders. Like, I think that's a big difference. Oh, okay. Darrow O'Brien says ICE is bad, but it does some good things like deport criminals, which Dems did a bad job of doing. That's not true, Darrow O'Brien. People love pointing out how many people Obama and Biden deported. So I think that is extremely inaccurate to say that criminals were not being deported under Democrats. Joey says, point out the bad things people do, but can citizens stop fighting? Also, can the House have a snowball fight? I don't know how productive a snowball fight would be. But yeah, Joey, you're speaking my language, man. You know, you will never hear me say a negative word anymore about right-wing voters. I'm new to this philosophy because I used to think that making fun of Trump supporters and Republican voters was more productive than engaging with them. And I've been on this tip for a long time now, but you can definitely find videos on my TikTok page and shit like that of me not being the best version of myself. Josh Sarrow says ICE supports criminals, making sure they can't get charged for jewelry theft. That's a really good point, Josh. Like, not only we are deporting criminals, but we're also deporting criminals that we wanted to keep in America so that we could hold them accountable for the crimes that they've done here in America. Joey says, I feel like if you have a clean record, you should be able to stay, but you should have to earn citizenship. I and every other Democrat agrees with you, Joey. It is just the Republican Party that disagrees with you, because they are rounding up people who have a clean record. They are rounding up people who are pinnacles of their community, you know? Let's see here. Joey says, both sides have crazies, but not everyone is. I love both Democrats and Republicans. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you can find a political party that everybody who ascribes themselves to that political party is like a perfect human being. But I do think that we need to recognize that there is a difference between how our lives are affected depending on who is in charge. Sonia Dabas says, can you tell me why Pondy gets away with her disrespecting Congress? Because the only people who could hold her accountable are other Republicans, Sonia, which is another reason why I think we need to vote them all out of government, from president to dog catcher. Matt G.W. McManus says, I think MAGA is for sure the exception to that. Exception to what? Cole Keene says, I would like to know why as a country we are not more mad about what has been revealed in the files. I mean, I think that we are mad about it. I mean, potentially we should be madder, I suppose, but everybody's doing the work as far as I know, or as much as they can. And if they're not doing the work, then send them my live stream because I'll try to get them to do the work. Joey says, it's like sports fan bases. There are so many good people, but the bad ones ruin the reputation. Yeah, again, Joey, we're in agreement, man. Let's not talk about voters. Let's talk about the people in power. Let's talk about the talking heads. Let's talk about the fact that Ben Shapiro is a fucking liar. Let's talk about the fact that Tucker Carlson is a fucking liar and Candace Owens is a fucking liar. Let's talk about the fact that because of Republicans being in charge, there are women today who are dead because of abortion bans that they instituted. Women who wanted to have children, who weren't even trying to have abortions, are now dead, and their children are lacking a mom. Let's talk about the fact that Renee Good is now dead because Republicans are in charge. Let's talk about the fact that Alex Preddy is dead because Republicans are in charge. Let's talk about the fact that the president has a fucking cryptocurrency where he's accepting bribes from foreign nationals to give him our most secure advanced AI chips, and Republicans are in charge because of that. That is happening because Republicans are in charge. David says, Laken Riley, I don't know who that is. Joey says, both sides in Congress are all fucked up. Completely disagree with that, Joey. There is a difference. Republicans are in charge right now. They're in charge of Congress. They're in charge of White House. They have a supremacy in the judiciary. So it is on them. All of this shit is on them. Lucky Penny says, nothing ever going to happen. That is inaccurate. The progress has been made in the past. Progress can be made again. Matt GW says, all of MAGA are crazy and ignorance. Facts not seen one sensible MAGA. It's all hate and ignorance. You know, Matt, I understand that position, but I don't think it's productive. So I'm not going to say that you're right or wrong. I'm just going to say I think that it is more productive to talk about the people in power than the voters. David says everything he doesn't even know Laken Riley. Oh, okay. So this is the woman who got murdered by an illegal immigrant, right, David? Because I know what you're doing, David, and you're full of shit. Let's be real. You're full of shit, man. Ask me why. Let's engage. Let's engage in good faith, David. I dare you to. Bitneva says, do you think Howard Lutnick knows he's about to go to prison along with Pam Bondi? I don't think that any of them going to prison is a given. I think that we need to do work to make sure that there is legal accountability for all of these peoples. Jarek says, "Are you an actor?" I mean, I have acted in the past. Oh, David reported me for bullying because I said he was full of shit. David, you did, right, David? You want to admit that you did that? Do you want to admit that you reported me for bullying because I said you were should have hit? Didn't report anything. What? Sure thing, David. Okay, if you say so. Sophia, great to see you again. Says, if there were to be universal health care, do you think private health care should be eliminated too? I am open to the existence of private health care existing in a universal health care world. But I'm also open to arguments that it should be abolished because it's inherently predatory or potentially it could hurt the overall goal of universal health care. Like, does it diminish the efficacy of universal health care if people have the option of private health care? I'm not really sure about that. Right now, I believe that there are people who want to have the sort of like parachute of private health care if they don't like what public health care is giving them. So I say, sure, let them both exist. I'm fine with that. Joey says people below the poverty line should be able to get good health care, but the people who afford it pay. Not really sure what you mean by that. Wasabi Quota says, what's one issue where both parties are incentivized not to solve the problem? I don't know. Alice says, you're American, so you probably will have no idea what I'm on about, but do you agree that Reform UK will ruin UK? But Reform UK is like Nigel Farage, right? And if that's the case, then yes, I do agree. Joey says, people can afford it, should pay. I ran out of room. Well, here's the thing, Joey. If we have universal health care, then people will pay what they can afford to pay for health care. So rich people who can afford to pay a lot will be taxed more, so that money will go into the government to pay for the health care for everybody. And that helps even the rich people, because if poor people can't go to the hospital, that means they just have to be sick, and then that disease spreads around and mutates and becomes more dangerous and more, what's the word? Communicable, contagious. It becomes more contagious, and then those diseases eventually get to the rich people who didn't want to pay the taxes to make sure that those people got health care. You feel me? Donut Joe says, who would you vote for if you were British? Labour. Oregon says, disease and sickness is profitable. I mean, it is until that disease reaches your doorstep, you know? Check out, there's a show called Common Side Effects on HBO. It's an animated series by, I think, Mike Judge. And they discover this mushroom that cures every disease. And this one healthcare executive tries to kill it because he wants to make money off of it, but then he gets cancer and tries to take the mushroom himself. So, there we go. Sophia says, but wouldn't universal health care decrease the quality of care? So all available evidence, Sophia, says that is not actually true. We spend more for healthcare here in America than any other civilized country, and we get worse healthcare and have worse healthcare outcomes than every other Western country. So, I know that this is an argument that comes for the right. It just doesn't seem to track for me at all. Like, where we will go to other countries for healthcare because it's better and it's more affordable. I just don't understand why. I just don't understand how that argument has any, feet. You know what I mean? Okay. Ecuadorian, great to see you again. Big long comments over on Twitch and YouTube, so you guys will have to bear with me to get over there. Joey says, I'm all for taxing the rich way more than already, but don't tax the middle class. I'm in the upper middle class. Okay, Joey, yeah, I'm totally fine with that. But you do recognize that the Republican Party has just been about cutting taxes for the wealthy. Like, for the past 50 years, that's been like their main policy, is cutting taxes for the wealthy. And that is the reason why public schools are suffering. That is the reason why our healthcare costs are so much more expensive. It is the reason why there's so much money in politics, because in cutting taxes for the wealthy, they then have more money to put into our political process. And they can afford to pay off Supreme Court judges, which is the reason why we have decisions like Citizens United, which made it so that now billionaires can spend unlimited amounts of money to pay for electioneering and shit like that. Let me know what you think about that, Joey. Matt G.W. McManus says, yeah, the trickle-down economics lie that hasn't worked for 100 years now. 100% Matt G. No arguments here. All right, let's get back into Twitch real quick. Ecuadorian says, I'm tired emotionally. All MAGA wants to do is blame immigrants like me, and I'm so damn tired of having to justify our existence and watching people like Good and Alex go down, trying to defend us. I'm so tired of this. I tried to have cordial conversations, but I'm just so tired of having to play nice. I completely understand that frustration, Ecuadorian. I don't believe that the answer is to tap out entirely, but just do some things that are good for you, for your heart, for your mental health. You know, I was actually just talking to my wife about this the other day, where being a freelancer the way that I am, because I'm a stand-up comedian and I work, when I'm on the road, basically, I have been able to invest a lot of time into figuring out what it is that helps reset me, and I'm a big fan of like going to get a massage or, doing a little gardening, seeing movies, playing video games, seeing friends, getting a coffee. And so it's really important that you do that self-care as well, because it can be really frustrating to pay attention to politics, try to do the work of politics, try to do the work of solving some of these problems. Civic engagement can be exhausting, so just like do the healing that you need to do for yourself, both mentally, emotionally, physically, so that you can come out here on Monday and get back on the field, and do all the work. Do all the work. All right, Space Plum says, now that Trump is mentioned in the Epstein files over 1 million times, is it fair to say that Trump is the Epstein files? I think it's a little hyperbolic. All right, I gotta block that person. That's the thing. Yes, please. All right, let's get back into these TikTok comments. Warzone Hunter says, the name of the game is Controlled Opposition. People, wake up. Warzone Hunter, this is your last warning. I am tired of your both sides nonsense. I have debunked this point time and time again, and then you listen to me, hostile host. Congratulations, you're out of here, my guy. Joey says, something I want is to cut the cost of therapy way more as someone with depression, anxiety, PTSD. I'm really sorry to hear that you're suffering from that, my guy. And that is Democratic policies, You know how whenever there's like a mass shooting and Democrats are like, we really want there to be gun control so this doesn't happen. And then Republicans go out there and they go, well, the issue is not the guns, it's mental health care. We need better mental health care in this country. But then they go out there and they cut access to mental health care and they cut funding for mental health care. Like you're aware of this pattern happening, right, Joey? Like I can send you data on this if you like. But let me know if this is new information for you. Lauren says that she's on her way to DC to see the monks in protest. Oh, that's dope. That's so cool. Sophia says, views on military/defense spending. I think it's important that we have the ability to defend ourselves from hostile nations. And so I think that it's important that we fund the military, and especially funding the type of research that gives us the edge militarily over other nations. That being said, the Pentagon has never passed a budget, and I think they should be forced to pass a budget. How much waste, fraud, and abuse is happening in the Department of Defense that they cannot show us where every penny is being spent? That seems to be like a pretty common sense, attitude to have towards military and defense spending. Don't you think, Sophia? McManus says, crazy host is probably one of the most calm guys I've seen. Chill guy. Matt G, that's how we can tell that people are trolls. This Warzone Hunter dude is a fucking troll because he's looking at a dude whose friends have called him chronically chill, aggressively chill. And and he's saying that I'm hostile, Joey says, we should tax people who have houses in the U.S. but mainly live outside the U.S. 100%, Joey. I think we should tax people who have multiple houses. Like, you should be taxed more if you have multiple houses, and we then use that money that we're getting from those taxes to build another house, because that rich person took one off the fucking market that another person might have been able to afford. Matt G says, imagine one game being your entire identity. I mean, that's kind of also how you can tell when people are trolls, is if they are, if their name is something like, generic internet thing. Alrighty, let's see here. 44 minutes. Ecuadorian says, but I do watch Jerry Springer clips on YouTube. If that helps, man, whatever helps. John, my wife has been watching Law and Order SVU, and she tells me that it's fucking, it's better than Zoloft, Okay, chronically chill, aggressively chill, limply, flaccidly chill. Opposite, erectly chill. John Abbott says expanding mental health resources would be one of the biggest direct benefits of universal health care. Completely agree with that, John Abbott. Thank you. That's an excellent point. Okay, Sophia says, so you support defense funding, but with budget requirements to assure that we know how the money is spent. Yes, Sophia, 100%. Absolutely. And Sophia, can we talk about something real quick, Sophia? If I asked you which political party is viewed as being the party that supports military spending more, which political party do you think is that political party? You know, which is the party of national defense and and supporting the military and shit like that? Which political party do you think supports the military more and is behind more military spending and stuff like that? Let me know. Rick Bernetti says, I don't believe anyone's going to be held responsible for the Epstein files. Unfortunately, Rick, I think that it is possible that the people who are in those files are held responsible, but we have to do the work to make that happen. We have to make sure that the people who are in our government are the people who will hold them accountable. Because right now, the people who are in charge of the government are incentivized to not hold those people accountable. Right. Triska says the corruption is rampant. Isn't that alone high crimes and misdemeanors? Yes, 100%. The fact that Trump has a crypto coin is by itself an impeachable offense. Full stop. Before we even get into the whole selling our most advanced AI chips to the Emiratis because they gave him $500 million, before we even get into accepting a $400 million jet from the Qataris, before we even get into trying to federalize elections and building concentration camps and covering for federal murders, shit like that. Okay. Philosophical Peacock says we need to eliminate commercial ownership of residential property. It only inflates real estate. Yeah, I mean, this was Kamala Harris's policy of making it illegal for private equity to own single-family homes, but America didn't vote for her. Seems pretty interesting to me, Matt GW says, what is with all the fraud found after Doge that they never ever seen? I mean, it makes perfect sense, Matt G, if you recognize that, they weren't actually there to find any waste, fraud, and abuse. They were just there to shut down programs that were investigating Elon Musk's companies. The Naked Truth says, when you control the SCOTUS, DOJ, House, Senate, most accountability, you won't admit guilt. That is accurate. Sophia says, I agree with ensuring we know how the money is spent, but I think Republicans support defense spending more. Okay, so let's build off of that, Sophia, all right? Let's say that you are the Democratic Party, and there is this idea out there that you are anti-military spending, anti-national security, which I think we can both agree that is part of our culture, is that people think that the Republican Party is the party of the military. People think the Democratic Party is the party of let's disband the military and just hug terrorists until they love us, right? I think we can agree that that's kind of like the vibe out there, right? I believe that because of that vibe, Democrats feel like they have to constantly increase military spending, and they constantly have to vote for more military spending, even though the Pentagon hasn't passed a budget. Because otherwise that would fall into that frame and people would be like, I'm not voting for Democrats because they don't support the military. And similarly, the Republican Party is constantly cutting resources to the VA hospital. And yet they are looked at as the party of supporting the military. What do you think about that, Sophia? Let me know. Joey says, I'm going to my therapy appointment soon, so I might have to leave soon. Well, we're happy that you're here, Joey. Thank you for being here once again. Have a good therapy appointment. I'm so glad that you're getting the help that you need for your mental health. T says, what do you think of Trump is planning surrounding the midterms? Is he planning something to cheat? Yes, 100% T. He is planning to cheat in the midterms. Full stop. How is he planning to cheat? That's a little bit more of an open question. There are things that have been bandied about, like he might use ICE to close down the roads in Democratic districts so that people have a harder time getting to the polls. He might use ICE to intimidate voters on election day. He might use ICE to arrest people who traditionally vote Democrat. That is part of the reason why it has been hypothesized that they are trying to get the voter rolls in all the different states. They've been demanding the voter rolls from Georgia and Minnesota and shit like that. So they have a list of names of people to arrest so that there are fewer Democratic voters because they're all in fucking concentration camps. You know, there's so many ways that they can try to monkey with things, and so we need to be on the phone with our representatives every fucking day, being like, making sure that they have contingency plans for all this shit. Matt GW says, if we even get a midterm, we will have a midterm. Matt GW, Trump does not have the power to stop the midterms. Elections are run by the states, so we will have midterm elections, 100%. See, Flan, good to see you as well. Thank you for being here. Alrighty. John Abbott says, with defense spending, it's also important to look at what kind of spending each party supports. The Dems push effective spending that makes troops more capable and supports them after they exit. Republicans push a lot more spending that is just there to build weapons manufacturer pocketbooks. I believe that is accurate, John Abbott. I am not prepared to make that argument, but I do believe that is an accurate thing that you just said. Josh Sarah says, no, generic internet thing is my father. Watcher. Long shot KDB says actual fascism. I don't know what that's a response to, long shots. Let's see here. Oreo says, if POTUS has broken laws many times, why hasn't anyone held him accountable and arrested him? Well, that is because, Oreo, all the people who could potentially do that are Republicans, and so they are not doing that on purpose. So this is the thing for me, all right? The Republican Party should be holding Trump accountable. They are in the position to do so, and they are not. To me, that means that the Republican Party has zero legitimacy. If you will not arrest a president of your own party, then you have zero legitimacy, in my opinion. There are other things, there are other reasons why he's not being held accountable and being arrested. There was a memo in the Department of Justice saying that sitting presidents can't be indicted. There was a Supreme Court decision saying that presidents are immune from legal prosecution for anything that can be deemed an official act. But yeah, if we were to follow these breadcrumbs to accountability for Trump, it would start with Congress impeaching him fucking yesterday. And Republicans are in charge of that process right now, and they are not doing it because they're on his team. Or they're too scared of him to try to hold him accountable. So again, Republican Party, completely invalid, in my opinion. Sophia says, I think putting that money towards schools, healthcare, etc., leads to less left for defense spending. Sophia, there's this attitude out there that we are suffering from limited resources in this country, that we don't have enough money for things like schools and healthcare. But we do have that money. The money is just sitting in rich people's bank accounts, There's no value to Elon Musk being a trillionaire. We could, if we could grab that value that he has, we would be able to fund every one of our pie-in-the-sky policies that we want. Universal healthcare, universal public college, green energy transitions. The money is there. This idea of scarcity is manufactured by the billionaire class. Like, if you ever talk to somebody who is incentivized to not get taxed by Democrats, they will tell you, like, I'm just barely making by. Meanwhile, they're fucking eating lobster and caviar 3 meals a day. Yeah, this scarcity myth is a tool of the billionaire class to try to make it seem like we can't have nice things, like we can't afford to have regular ass lives. It's Animal Farm shit. It's just like, I'm sorry, but you just have to work harder. You have to work harder. You got to go without your avocado toasts. You got to have a couple of roommates, because we can't pay you more money. Otherwise, the whole fucking company would collapse if we paid you more money and gave you health care and shit like that. It's a lie. It is a lie. It is 100% bullshit. Okay, long shots. Says, I know everyone knows I just have to say it out loud sometimes to remind myself the USA is now dealing with fascism. I know a little about bullying voters, the bullets, and the ballot box gerrymandering. I'm Irish. Oh, interesting. Let's see here. Josh Sarah says, grab billionaires by the wallet. I fucking love that. JP says, why hasn't Trump been held accountable? 47 felonies, impeached twice. I don't think it was 47 felonies. I think it was like 34 felonies. He was indicted for 90 felonies, but he was found guilty of 34 felonies in the one trial that we were able to make happen before the election happened. Alrighty, Percival says, I think everyone needs to watch the first episode of The Newsroom. Maybe, I don't know. Okay, let's see here. The Naked Truth says they won't impeach him because if he goes, they will go, potentially. Let's see here. Percival says, what policy would help voters the most that they'd reject because it's unpopular or hard to understand? Ooh, that's a really good question, Percival. What policy would voters not like, but what would help them the most? It's a really good question. I don't know. I'm looking at my list and everything. I think everything on my list of like progressive policies is something that if you explain it to people, they would recognize that it's beneficial. And all of those things similarly could be framed in a way by right-wing billionaires as being a negative. But I don't think there's anything like inherently that you just hear it and you're like, oh, that would be bad for me, you know? I guess universal healthcare could maybe be that thing because people hear that their taxes are being raised in order to pay for it, but they are not adding in the fact that they wouldn't have to pay for health insurance anymore, which would more than make up for the extra money they'd be spending in their taxes. So I guess that's probably the closest one, Percival, you know? Let's see here. The Naked Truth is the fact that he was found guilty but suspended because he was elected. However, is suspended when he is out. He then can be sentenced. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if that's true, but I hope it's true, and I'm sure it is true. Okay, John Trotta says the trillionaire class don't pay taxes at all. They own the government. That is accurate, and it is the Republican Party that is helping them do that. Martin McClure says in Ireland we have universal health care. It's not that good. It's better than what we have here, I guarantee you. Matt GW says we fire Congress and Senate, make open source secure AI app to submit and format our own bills. We submit them, run rest of government same, and bills get the motion, put them out. I don't know. That seems like it could potentially be hacked. I don't love that idea, Matt G. Just got to be honest with you guys. All right, everybody. I got reported for harassment and bullying by somebody just because I accurately described them as being full of shit. So, I don't know. And then he denied it. So, what are you going to fucking do? So, I'm going to start wrapping things up. Sophia, I'll get to your most recent question here. So, yeah, get in your final questions. Sophia says, but shouldn't rich people be allowed to keep the money that they make? I support taxing them, but still. You know, when you frame it like that, Sophia, it does make it seem unfair. It makes it seem like these rich people worked really hard to get their money, and we are just taking it away from them. But I don't think that is an accurate way of looking at how these rich people are acquiring all their wealth. A lot of this wealth was acquired via exploiting the worker class, where we have this system set up where companies can form these giant monopolistic conglomerates, which eliminates market competition, which means that there are no other options for where people can work, which means that they are allowed to just pay less and less and offer fewer and fewer benefits and put more and more money in their pockets. You know, they have been able to acquire through political donations politicians that will pass legislation that makes it easier for them to capture more value from the work that we are doing for them. And so all that we are saying when we are saying tax the rich, eat the rich, eliminate the billionaire class, make it illegal to be a billionaire, etc., is we're saying let's change those systems so that it is not shuffling money from our pocket into theirs. You know, they will try to frame this as this is unfair. We worked really hard to make this money. My counter argument would be you did not work hard to make that money. You hired people who worked really hard to make you that money. And because you own the politicians, you were able to pay them less than a livable wage and not give them the kind of benefits that they need to survive. What do you think about that, Sophia? Let me know. Thank you for everybody who's being here. I probably should have stopped and restarted after I got reported for that bullshit, but what are you gonna do? I do not regret calling that guy out for his bullshit. Triska Muzzking, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And I know that we're wrapping things up, but I'm going to do a finger hearts regardless. If you want to support the show financially, you can, guys, but you don't have to. I know that we're all struggling and that Trump is not helping at all. The mechanisms are there, though. If you have the means and you have the desire to, the mechanisms are there. You can send gifts on TikTok, and I think you can send like emotes on Twitch. I need to learn more about that. If anybody's a Twitch expert and wants to help me out with that, let me know. You can also become a super fan on TikTok. That helps me out. That's like a subscription thing. You can be a Patreon member for as little as $1 a month. You can be a subscriber to my Twitch channel, and if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for free. Costs you nothing. Helps me out a ton. Sophia says, but even if they are hiring people to make money for them, wouldn't they still be the one starting the business? Yeah, I believe that people that start businesses should be able to profit from those businesses. But the scale is just way the fuck out there. Let me make this analogy, Sophia, and tell me if you think it's worth it. So I rob a store. I rob a loaf of bread to feed my starving child, to feed my sister and her starving child. I don't know where I got that example from. Maybe if I think about it one day more, I'll be able to figure it out. So I steal a loaf of bread and I get sentenced to life in prison. And I think that that's not a good, I don't think that balances out, I think that the punishment does not fit the crime. But then somebody might then say back to me, but shouldn't we punish people who steal things? And it's like, yeah, but the scale is off. I feel the exact same way about the way that our economy is structured right now. If you take a risk and do the work of starting a business and hiring people and being that kind of benefit to society, then 100% you deserve a little bit more profit than the people who are working under you. But right now, the scales are just way, way off, where the people at the top are making 99% of the gains, and we are being told to live off of fucking scraps and crumbs. Your dad's a cop, Sophia. He should be making more money, in my opinion. And the fact that his police department is suffering from budget cuts, and he believes that they don't have enough money to invest in things like, de-escalatory practices and stuff like that. It's because the money that should be going into your dad's police department and into his paycheck is currently sitting in fucking Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos' bank account. Let me know what you think about that. Uperlar says, how can you justify Trump only paying $100 in taxes? You can't, Uperlar. You can't. RC says, any opinion on the proposed California wealth tax? I'm for it. Tax the wealthy. Fucking tax the fucking wealthy, man. Tax them. Okay, regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If there are any questions that you have that I was not able to get to, or something else comes up when I'm not streaming, DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can hit me up on my Discord channel. The Discord channel is great because it also has recommendations for work that you can be doing to help in our current situation, and great books and podcasts for you to become more informed. But I want to be a way that you guys become more informed and more involved in politics. So if I can do that for you, shoot me a DM, get in touch, don't be shy, use me and abuse me, use me until you use me up. Special thanks to my regular patrons and subscribers: Grimicus, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, Patrick, Dan Blackroyd, the two Seans, Lauren, Triska, Pliff, and It's the Rocketeer. Sophia says, something support the way billionaires make money. So if we reform the system, do you still support taking their money? I think that some of what we need to do in order to rebalance our economy is not just about fixing the system, it's about fixing the gains already. So going back to my loaf of bread metaphor, let's say that we change the law so that people that steal a loaf of bread are not thrown in jail for life, are instead only thrown in jail for, a month. That means that there is still somebody rotting in jail for the rest of their lives for stealing a loaf of bread. We have to fix that problem also, So yeah, we would need to do something to address the current wealth inequality in addition to fixing the system so that the gains from all of our products go to a more equitable distribution. Okay, let's see here. Get in touch. Thank you to my regular subscribers. And yeah, just my heartfelt plea that y'all out there do the work, because it is only through us doing the work that we're going to be able to get out of this fucking quagmire that we are in here. Let's see here. Any final things to get into? Rezor says, why do you think history taught us in U.S. focuses heavily on Germany and doesn't talk much about Japan? I don't know if that's accurate. I feel like I learned about both when I was growing up. I mean, Germany was also kind of like the focal point there. Like they kind of started it, and Japan kind of like joined them afterwards. RC says, like, some of your opinions about wealth taxes have been proven to be ineffective. I do not believe that is accurate at all, RC. I believe that it is possible for us to tax the wealthy, and it is just about closing loopholes and figuring out how they are hiding their wealth in the fucking Caymans and shit like that. Okay, RC says cash doesn't sit in bank accounts, it's in stock. Tax the loans they take out against their wealth. Completely agree. That's what I mean by tax the wealthy. I'm not just saying tax their income or tax what's in their bank account. I'm saying they have value that they are living off of, and they are buying fucking private jets off of. Tax that shit. Tax that shit. Troy says the problem with capitalism and trickle-down economics is the worker will always be more desperate. I mean, that's one of many problems with trickle-down economics. Sophia says, so are you saying we should reform the system and also make it easier for people to make money? I mean, that seems a little overly simplistic, Sophia. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Matt GW says, did you see the Swiss threatened to out their accounts over the Greenland-Iceland thing? I did see that, and I'm happy. I'm always happy when other governments stand up against Trump, because that's the only way to stand up against a bully. Dionysus says, is there a policy you disagree with the Democratic Party? Not so much a policy, I just don't really like the way that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are behaving as party leaders. All right, everybody, I got to get out of here. I will see you guys later. Hold on a second. Average Joe says MCU or DCU. For live action, MCU, or at least it used to be. They've gone really downhill. And for animated, I go DC. Maybe the DC live action will get good at some point. Maybe Marvel live action will get good again at some point. I have no idea. All right, everybody. See you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Do the work. Love y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.